remember the ice-cold jolt going through my body when I heard the creaky door open. I immediately froze. I didn't hear my brother get down from the top bunk. Maybe he was extra quiet tonight when he went to go pee. Was my little sister scared tonight like I was? Maybe she was sneaking into our room like she always did. I had no real reason to be scared, but I was. I knew it must have been my brother or sister opening up the door, but I was too afraid to move. I just laid there and waited to see. I was bracing for my sister to snuggle into bed all puffy-eyed and crying because she heard a monster. After about 30 seconds, though, there was nothing. I was confused. Surely one of them would have climbed into either bunk bed by now. Still, I waited. Another 30 seconds went by. I clearly counted to 30 in my head this time, just to be sure. I was still confused as well and terrified, but curiosity began to sink in. The door clearly opened but never shut, and nobody came or left from what I could tell. It didn't make sense. All the while, my mind was racing while I laid still. Who opened the door? The fact that it was still open was eating at me. I could never sleep knowing my door was open. I felt my fear grow stronger. I wanted nothing more than to go to bed, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I stared blankly at the wall, hoping my brother would come back from the bathroom and shut the door when he did. I just couldn't bring myself to face the door. Still nothing. Silence. An eerie silence I didn't notice at first. Just as I began to notice how quiet it really was, the door creaked again. This time slowly, then slower, then slower. So slow that it was agonizing. The chill was in my spine again, and I was holding my breath. The creak only became even slower as it went on, eventually stopping on a long drawn-out click. I didn't dare move. I kept my breath in me. I thought to myself, it has to be my sister. She must be scared to come in and she thinks I'll be mad. As soon as that thought hit my brain, I came to my senses. I had no reason to be scared, and I was acting childish. I have to be a brave big brother. I exhaled and turned over to face the door. All of my silly fear now gone. I wish I hadn't. As soon as my eyes met this man's face, that icy cold jolt came back with a vengeance, so much so that my stomach turned to knots. Holding my breath again, I didn't move a muscle. I wouldn't dare. I just stared directly at him, unsure of what to do. All I could make out was that he was a nicely dressed man sitting on my desk, his legs using my chair like a recliner, and his hands up behind his head, almost as if he was relaxing. He was right next to my bedroom door, and he was a man I did not know. He wasn't staring at me. His eyes were fixated on something a few feet to my left. I was still holding my breath. I was petrified. I was so mentally stuck and confused and afraid that I couldn't move, even if I wanted to. All I could do was stare, endlessly, for what felt like an eternity. I began to take a good look at this man. Despite my eyes twitching in fear, I noticed this wasn't just any nicely dressed man, but a man dressed like one of those guys from the black and white movies my grandma watched. Suit, tie, suspenders, the whole thing. He even had one of those goofy flat hats. Although I could tell where he was staring, the hat prevented me from fully seeing his face. The only thing that stood out as different were his feet. It took me a second to realize what he had on them. They almost looked like they were deformed, but I realized it was something else. They were plastic bags. The man had tied plastic bags around his feet like socks. Before I could think about how strange this truly was, I exhaled abruptly. I felt tingles on my neck. My eyes still on the nicely dressed man's face, he leaned forward and brought himself to a sitting position, his feet now planted level on the chair. As he brought his arms down, he interlocked his fingers, resting his elbows above his knees. Slowly, his head began to turn on a swivel. As his head turned, my bedroom door began to creak again. Only my door didn't even move. My door wasn't even open. None of it made sense. The creaky noise was coming from the man's neck turning towards me. Click, click, click. Slower and slower, like it took forever. The tingles in my neck turned to needles. My neck and spine were so cold and so hot at the same time. My stomach felt empty. I could now feel my heart pounding through my chest. I couldn't even comprehend what I was hearing or seeing. The man's hat gave way to the light shining through my window as the last creak in his neck gave its final prolonged click. His face was finally exposed. His eyes, they were gone. Pockets. They were pockets of nothing at all. Why would someone with no eyes smile so big?